Oh, hi guys. Hi guys. Haha, just making a funny there. How are you all? I am so sorry that I've been out of touch. I am just so incredibly busy. I got laid off at the beginning of the pandemic, and quite honestly, I don't see how I really ever had time to work, nor that I could ever get time to work again. I'm a very busy person, and I am having that surgery on my rotator cuff on the 27th. And, I've dealt with this pain for literally, literally, probably, I'm going to honestly say 35 years is when I first started having problems with my shoulder from a little car accident I was in when I was 15. We'll talk about that at some point. We'll put an asterisk at that. How about that? Asterisk. You can see that in my shadow. Asterisk, right? And then it was just one of those things that it got worse. Every time I'd fall, it was my right shoulder. Every time I would fall, I'd try to catch myself with that arm. And I had a really severe fall um, when I was like 20, I think that's when I was. And it was at work, and I fell on, it was a wet floor and fell on the kitchen prep table just enough that then my um, elbow caught it and halfway dislocated the shoulder. And so, I was just, young and still could, get up and keep going. And then it just got worse and worse, as I had kids. And it would be just that thing, from picking up my kids. And when I had my three youngest in 2 days less than 1 year, then it was the three car seats, the three strollers, the feeding three, the changing the diapers of three, the just everything in triplicate. And then having to shut the back hatch of my vehicles from putting in the strollers and all that good stuff. And I would just cry every night because my shoulder would hurt so freaking bad. And then when I could get a little bit of physical therapy, it'd get a little bit better because it was like all stuck. And then I got this big tumor on my carpal tunnel ligament. So that's what was assumed to have caused it. And I had that tumor taken off, and it was not cancerous. It was just a big fat blob. And it was nice that there was a big condensed fat blob, and I wish that the rest of the fat on me would just kind of go in those blobs so I could just get them cut out every once in a while. Because I would tell, I got fat from this freaking pandemic. Working, probably kept some of this lard off of me, but Lord, I'm a big girl now. But anyway, so over the years, I'd fall and whatever and re-injure my shoulder. It was just the problem thing. It would always get semi-dislocated, blah, blah, blah. Sprained. Then it would just be something that would bother me, and it would get frozen. I couldn't move it at all. And this last time, it was like 3 years ago, I just hadn't moved my right arm away from my body in like 2 years. It was like I had a broken wing, and I just did everything with my non dominant and, just lived that way. And through the physical therapy that I was able to attend because I'd gotten laid off, I got a lot of range of motion back with my shoulder and everything. It was going great until this summer, and my son and his girlfriend went on a vacation, and they brought back a ton of laundry for me, and I was just doing so much laundry, and my washer is like when I lean down and I have to get the socks from the bottom of it. I had to get a step stool because the first week I had that washer, I almost fell in the washer at least 3 times. And then when that fucker comes unbalanced, it comes chasing me. And it's scary. So, I have to go deep with this mofo. And so my shoulder got frozen again. I went back to the doctor, and I was like, I just don't have all the time to keep doing the physical therapy. And the freaking physical therapy copays are, $30 to $45 each. I'm just like, I just need to get it fixed. So that's when we did the MRI with that arthrogram thing where they didn't bother to use numbing agents, and found the full thickness tear, and my bicep is separated from it and the bone spur in it and all that good stuff. So I'm going to have my arm fixed. And I just have so much to do before I really know that I'm not going to be able to use my right arm because I still use it all the time. I forget about how much it hurts. So trying to get everything done before that and enjoy the fall. and everything like that. And it was my husband's birthday this last weekend. And so we just, just trying to be really in the moment these days as I'm older. He's older too. Like 3 years older than me, freaking cradle robber. So anyway, I wanted to hop on here and not give and do something different from my regular things that I do to kind of catch up on a couple of points and to update you on something really exciting. So, in my comments, well, in my commentary, I have explained that I have a filthy mouth, that I talk horribly. Um, my husband is a sailor, and when he first got me, he was just disgusted with my mouth and everything. There's not anything I could do about it. I was already past the point in my life where I give a fuck. I was in, I'd like to say it was chapter 2 of my life, but I think it probably, if we were to define it, probably like chapter 7 or 8 by that time. Where I was just like, fuck it all. Because I had wasted all my time up till I was 30 being perfect. Like, so perfect. Perfect. Turtlenecks. My first mother-in-law did not allow me to have cracks of any kind showing. No cracks of the cleavage, no cracks of the toes, no cracks on the back. So I always wore a turtleneck, support hose, functional shoes, mainly the SAS kind. Those ones with the rubber soles. And I was perfect. I was very perfect. Didn't say any bad words, nothing. But after I left that chapter of my life and got remarried, and I was single for a moment in time, and I just became free, and it's a very long story, but I was very, very deeply involved in politics and such that I'll explain all of this sometime. But I found that while I was in politics and such, and hanging around and rubbing elbows with politicians and attorneys and the media and whatnot, I found that they would, especially the men, walk away and kind of cover their mouth when they wanted to say something. And I felt like a child being walked away from, that there was something that I wasn't grown up enough to hear. And I realized they were using the cuss words, especially the fuck word. And I had went to this mansion. That's my favorite place in the world. It's called the Campbell House Museum in Spokane, Washington, my hometown. And it had the little parlor room downstairs. And I was going through it. I was going through it. I was going through everything. I was going through that phase of my life, and I was, going back through that mansion because I just love that mansion. I just, love to lurk there. And noticed that the men had this room downstairs where they would smoke cigars and play pool, and the room had to be closed because it had gambling and men talking and men drinking alcohol. And the upstairs was for the women. And when the women would come over, they'd be received in the guest room. The butler would open the door, take the calling card of the lady who requested the presence of the lady of the house. They would sit, drink tea, have their pinkies pointed, and speak politely with each other. And I thought, how fucking boring is that? I want to be down there with the men. I want to be laughing, drinking, playing pool. I don't want to smell their cigars, so that would be like the one problem I couldn't. But I wanted to be included in all conversation. And it just dawned on me that that's how that happened. That men got this kind of way, to keep those girls with the cooties away with the excuse that you don't cuss in front of a lady. And the women took it for a long time, but then there were the women who said, no, no. If I need to sit there and talk about hairy, itchy balls and say the fuck word so that you'll feel free to talk in front of me, then I will. And life is a little bit more fun, and you can laugh and be included in all conversation. And so it was kind of in my rebirth of everything at that time. And I would find that if I was the first to introduce the fuck word to the company in which I was in attendance, then I would find that then they were more comfortable with however they wanted their speech to get. because the topics in politics and otherwise are sometimes upsetting, the fuck words are ways of dealing with the heaviness of the subject. Some people smoke through these topics, some people drink through these topics, some people cuss through these topics, and I'm a cusser. I don't drink, smoke, or do anything too weird. So, but I do cuss. And I am sorry that that's offensive to some people. And that's where I just don't want to have anybody feel uncomfortable when they're listening to me. But I also need to state that I'm too old to change. And it's me. It is who I am. And I'm the mom of 6 kids, and 5 of those are sons. Do you know how many gross teenage boy jokes I've had to hear and deal with? And so it's just been something that, like when my boys had their friends over or whatever, and I was talking with them or whatever, it's like I could keep up to speed. And so I knew more than any of the moms, and I knew everything, and I know every secret about everybody because they never had anything, because they knew that they could talk openly with me. And so there was a comment from one of our subscribers, and she said that she liked me, but she is bothered by my potty mouth. And I told her to fuck off. Just kidding. Just kidding. I did not. I did not. And she knows it. That's a joke. Okay, just kidding. I explained that I'm just not a hypocrite in any way. And I can't ever be a mom that asks my child to do something that I wouldn't do. So I have a problem with people who um, act like they would never say a bad word and scold their children for saying bad words when then they're talking to their friends and they're saying the bad words. I mean, the kids hear it somewhere, right? And so I just figured I can't ask my kids not to do this. And so it's like, and they know appropriately. And I told them, I said, if you ever talk like your mother in front of somebody at school and the school calls me and tells me that you used the fuck word or another word, I am going to tell them that I don't know how on earth they would have ever heard such language, and that I am disgusted, and that they should go ahead and resort to the most strict punishment that there is available. So they knew, and they never used the fuck words or anything at school. They knew when it was appropriate and not. They knew that when I would admit it, of course, tongue in cheek, joking, right? Had a lot of inside jokes with my kids, and I don't know. Like I say, I just love being a mom. But when I said that to my follower, um, what am I, a cult? I'm a cult woman now. Tabitha Jane cult. You're my follower. You must use the fuck word. Um, it came off bad. I realized it. Like when you say something in text, it just doesn't have the connotation of satire or the personality and whatnot. So I said in there, I said, I'm not a hypocrite. I'm a mom of, 6 kids, 5 of them boys. I've always talked openly in front of them, and they've done the same. And, I'm so sorry that, I talk in this way and it offends you. There are other creators on YouTube that don't ever say a bad word, and you're welcome to go there. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable, but I also cannot change because I'm talking about subject matter that is disturbing, and it is worthy of strong language. And there are men who have made a whole career out of sitting here and pontificating because they can get away with saying the fuck words. But the moment that a female does it, well, then, she's got a potty mouth and people turn away from her. And it's time that stops. It's time that a lot of that stops. So, my sweet follower said, "Oh, no, no, I didn't mean it in that way. I think you do a great job. And, I don't subscribe to many, and I'll stay around even though, the fuck word bothers me." And I was so grateful. I was like, well, thank you so much for staying. Please know that there are just some things that are not talked about in society. And with it, to get to be heard, sometimes you have to use the potty words. But believe me, in all of the politics that I've done and everything else like that, and when I was giving interviews and all of that you guys will sometimes see, I did never use the fuck words. I know when to use them. I know when to talk like a lady. But when something pisses me off, it's going to come out. So here's the fuck words, okay? So with that being said, I had a colliding of worlds this week. Kind of cool, right? Note that I don't have anything witchy. I have something that's very near and dear to my heart. And I hope that it will become a cause that's near and dear to your heart as well. I hope that you have become comfortable enough to trust me when I talk about a subject that I think is worthy of your time. I am not native. I am the pale faced demon that so many natives do not like. And when I took on this case that woke me up, literally in the middle of the night, and I couldn't sleep for days because of what I saw, I was attacked by people in this community in MMIW when they learned that I was not native. They said I didn't understand and that I had no business being in this nor talking about it. And I explained that I understood and that I understand why there is resentment towards the pale face like me. But I also asked them to continue to let me fight because I am one of them pale faces. I can fight like them. I know what they're going to do. They're predictable. And I would like to be the first to stand in front of them and take whatever bullets, blades, whatever are thrown at me while I speak on the subject, because it's time that we, no matter the color of our skin, all bleed red, and it is time to see that that unites us more than anything. And the time to stand up for Indigenous women is now. It was yesterday. We can't change yesterday, but we can change tomorrow. And if you'll let me stand in front, I will show you that I'm serious. And if at some point you want to grab me back and put me in line with you, I will stand beside you, but I will never stand in a way that you would get hurt before I would. I would take the hurt. I will take the pain because you've taken too much. Now, I had worked behind the scenes on a Facebook page that I created one night. It was in April. It was 2019. I had some little independent news channels on my Facebook because of, I think it was the Castillo case, where I first started seeing that the media was not being accurate with what I knew was honestly happening. I think it was the Fernando Castillo case. And so I had this independent news kind of station, and I think it was broadcasting out of California. So I think how it happened. And what had happened was this mother took some pictures of her daughter that was battered and bruised head to toe, on a ventilator, fighting for her life. This beautiful girl, beautiful, laying there fighting for her life, is named Jessica Alva. And her mother, Cindy, wrote from her heart this letter that said, "When will it end? When will it end? When will men stop abusing our daughters? When will the last woman suffer? When will we all stand up and say, no more? And I read her words. And as a mother myself, I was enraged. I hurt for this woman. And I hurt for this beautiful girl laying in that bed. And then I found out that beautiful girl in the bed was a mom of 6. And so am I. And I thought about it. And I went to her Facebook page. And I went and went. And I went down the rabbit hole like you guys know that I do. I go down these rabbit holes and I see things others don't. And I went back and back and back, and I'm going, what? This doesn't make sense. How does this make sense? What in the double fuck is going on here? And I found more and more and more, and I couldn't deal with it. And so I started a Facebook page, and it is this page called Justice for Jessica. Justice for Jessica Alva. Now there's a discrepancy in the way that Jessica is spelled. Okay, and I'm going to explain that in a moment, because the Facebook page does say Justice for Jessica, so Jessika, and Justice for Jessica with a C. So at that point, all I knew was that this beautiful girl was fighting for her life and needed all of the prayer in the world that we could come up with to get her brain to heal and for her to wake up and be there for her babies. And I didn't know the family, and I didn't know Jessica, but I felt like I did. There was something so strong in me that for 36 hours I didn't sleep. I just worked on this. I just worked on it and worked on it and worked on it. And when she didn't survive, and I found out that the police were ignoring this case and allowing this felon who had just been released, who was openly and actively committing parole violations in front of the police, beside the police. And the police didn't care. They looked the other way. And this monster, this piece of shit, was out to go and do this to another. He was out taunting Jessica's family. I was disgusted, and I wanted awareness, and I wanted awareness, and I wanted awareness now. And as I looked at Jessica's pictures, I found out that she was involved with MMIW. For those of you who don't know or are new to this subject, the color red represents this prayer, this cause, and it is for No More Stolen Sisters. It is for the indigenous women rising, and it is to protect the sacred. # missing and murdered indigenous women. And it needs to be known. Every single Facebook profile should be lit up on the day that we say to wear red. Should take this picture. And that's my white candle for purity. And that is a candle for cleansing that is a tradition in Native culture. And that is responsibly sourced white sage bought from a local tribe with the abalone shell. So don't come for me and say that I am, oh gosh, what do they even call that? I freaking hate that word. What do they say that it is? Oh, that I am, oh, what do they say I am doing? They call me a culture vulture, and, oh, what else? You all know what I'm talking about. You guys are probably screaming it right now. What? No, I'm not. I don't know. From a young age, so my grandma narcissist adopted a Native American orphan when I was young. So all I knew was my aunt was Native. And I thought she was so fascinating. And she would take me places. I was her little best friend. I think she was probably like 13 at the time, and I was like 4 or 5. And I just kind of followed her wherever she'd go, and she took me to school with her a couple of times. And I just thought she was real cool. And when my mom got pregnant with my sister, I hoped that, she was going to come out brown like my aunt. But she didn't. That's a sister I can't stand. And then my mom was pregnant again, and I was really hopeful this time because I just wasn't sure exactly what happened and how you know my skin was not the same color as my aunt's, but my aunt was really cool, and I wanted a cool sister. And my next sister was white too, but she had really naturally curly hair, which I showed you a picture of how her hair was like Bella's. So it was okay that she too was a pale face like me. But my other grandma loved Native culture, and had friends. She was the widow, and she had a lot of Native American men that she just loved, and they would show me their gardens and give me Indian corn. I'm probably saying that, and you guys are like cringing because like it's probably not supposed to call Indian corn, it's supposed to be Native American corn. But you know what I'm talking about? The really colorful corn. Yeah, and I just loved everything Native culture, and it was pretty common where I was from. You know, most of the cities and whatnot, were called, were named after Native culture and whatnot. So then, when I moved to the Midwest, I was in college, and it was American Studies, and they were talking about the ghost dance, and this idiot who was like 6'7" pontificated as he sipped on his coffee, fellow student, said, "Yeah, that was the night when they all learned that they better be Christians or they're gonna be killed." And I looked at him for a second, and then everybody like nodded, and they're like, "Yeah, that's when that happened." Motherfucker, you know that I've told you guys I'm barely 5 foot tall. I don't know how exactly I lunged at him with the desk in the way, but his 6'7" ass stood up, grabbed his coffee, and ran because I was telling him off in front of the whole class and everything. And because that is not true and that is disrespectful, and I will not allow that to be taught. And it was disgusting that everybody was agreeing with it. And then they were all like, "Well, what's wrong with you? Like, that's what we were taught." And I'm like, "Who the fuck taught you that?" Because that's not how it went down. What do you know? What do you know about Wounded Knee? What do you know? What, like, wounded what? Who hurt their knee? I'm like, what are we talking about? And then I found out as I was about to be expelled from that college the next day, and I was getting my ass reamed by admin and whatnot, and they were trying to figure out how they were going to nicely expel me from the college and where I could transfer from to. I found out that Native Americans are not discussed in classrooms in the Midwest, that children who identify as Native are taken out of their classrooms and are taught privately, and the rest of the class is not. They know nothing of Native culture in the Midwest. And I thought that was disgusting and wrong, and I was appalled. I'm in this stupid freaking elective class at the 400 level in American culture, and you're trying to tell me that there were no Native Americans in our culture, and you expect me to accept this class and take a grade from it when you are actively teaching misinformation? Yeah, I didn't get it. So I made a few calls to a few Native American friends of mine, and they made some calls, and I made it known that I'd be protesting the next day with my Native American friends, unless and until they accepted me back into the school. That the project that I was involved in, this whole unit, that I would write in the piece that would be a part of that curriculum and properly teach the ghost dance and the history behind it and what happened at Wounded Knee, and that would indeed become part of the curriculum. And it was. And it did. And my friends didn't have to come and stand with me. But they would have. They would have. So it's not my first problem being, you know, not understood for standing up for what I don't understand. And when the truth and the whole story isn't told. And that's what happened with Jessica that night. Jessica's story should have been on every major news network. She was in San Francisco. Had a white woman experienced what Jessica did, there isn't a TV screen in the nation that wouldn't have had her there, and her name would have been a household name. But because she was Native, news stations didn't even care. We called them. I called them. They called them. The police were there. The police were involved. News reporters listen to scanners. They know when something's happened. But she was Native, so she didn't get any coverage. What's wrong with that? Why? Does she feel no pain when she's being strangled? And only white women feel pain when they're strangled? Is that why Shanann Watts has gotten so much coverage? And she was canonized and made a saint and is said to be a victim of all of this stuff when the truth of her life and her secrets are taking 4 years and basically now millions of people to try and figure out, and we're still nowhere near the truth? When you have Jessica, who's a mom of 6 who did struggle. She really did struggle. She was abused as a child. She witnessed domestic violence as a child. As such, even her mother says she was drawn to, sadly, that type of man. And in order to cope with her trauma, Jessica did become addicted to substances. And it affected her parenting. And she knew it. And in 2015, she said no more. And she moved to San Francisco for a whole new start in her life, to be the mother that she needed to be, that her 2 youngest needed her to be. And she was. And she moved to San Francisco and went through the Friendship House and went through their addiction program and worked the front desk and became involved in all amazing things that the Friendship House had to offer. And everybody loved her. She just had this beautiful, she's just one of those people who was just so intrinsically beautiful from the inside out, and her smile would light up the room. I was never fortunate enough to know her in life, so I only know her through pictures and through what her family's told me. But you can see she's so beautiful. And what had happened this week, which we were so happy about, is that finally Investigation Discovery covered her story. And that's huge. And so I had given up on her page. I kept up with everything for a couple of years. And the fact that then San Francisco would do nothing to investigate the case, I made it a point to say, I will update this page when something changes. And I made a point of not updating to bring that point home. That no, nothing's changing. And people go on and they go like, hey, is he in prison? Yeah, he's in prison for parole violations. He has never been charged, interrogated, sentenced for anything in the alleged murder of Jessica Alva. Never. So it's time that her story is told. Because I'm lucky enough to have earned the trust of 670 people subscribing to me, to hear me and listen to me and become part of a community that goes to look further than the headlines, to look into the real story, to find out really what happened, to look at what happened and take it apart, to put it back together, to prevent a tragedy in the future, to make a better future for our children. Is what I want to do. And because I have 670 people that are listening to me when this happened, that this was on Investigation Discovery this weekend, it was on, there's a new series called Still a Mystery. So you go to Investigation Discovery, Still a Mystery. You go to the episode called Suspicious Circumstances. And on the second half of that episode is the story of Jessica Alva. And I pray that you listen to it. And then I pray that you listen to me and others as we fight for justice for Jessica, and we say no more missing and murdered Indigenous women. And with my platform of 670, if I get notifications from somebody in the MMIW community that there is a sister that is still missing and we have an opportunity to still find her and rescue her, let's do it. Please, all 670 of you could share it, and then they could share it, and we could make a difference. We really could. And so I'm colliding my two worlds, and I am putting together my Tabitha Jane channel on my missing and murdered Indigenous women awareness page in honor of Jessica Alva on the Justice for Jessica Alva Facebook page. And on my Justice for Jessica Facebook page, I am announcing the Tabitha Jane. So, worlds collide. We all think alike. And it's time to act on our thinking and just continue to find out more. So once again, if you were trying to grab a pen, go to the ID channel, Still a Mystery series, Suspicious Circumstances, and go to the second half and listen to Jessica's story. And I'm going to tell you Jessica's story tonight. And I am actually really impressed that ID did a great job in covering the basics of her story. There is so much more, of course. And I would like to tell you what I can that is more of the story so that you can continue to tell her story. And ultimately, if we can get the San Francisco police and the prosecutor to get off their duffs and do something and prosecute Clayton Rhodes for the alleged murder of Jessica so that her children know that they are safe and the man that murdered their mother will never again see the light of day. That'd be amazing. We could do it. We could do it. San Francisco Police Department failed. And I'm so happy that they included that segment and that statement in their coverage of Jessica's story. They did. They botched the case. They absolutely 100% botched the case. They refused to comment, of course, because what are they going to do? Stand up and say, yeah, we chose to do nothing about it. We're standing firm in that. They said they refused to comment. However, Jessica's case is still open but inactive. Now, as we go through other parts of her story, I will, at some point, not tonight, I will read you the medical examiner's report and Jessica's autopsy because it matters. If you thought that there were errors in Shanann's autopsy, just wait until you see Jessica's. I had great hopes that the autopsy was going to be amazing and really turn the case around because it was conducted by, what's his name? Was it Michael Baden? Is that his name? Sorry, guys, I'm really having COVID brain tonight. Um, it was in his office. So I think it's Dr. Boden's office, the one where they had the whole series on ID with the autopsy. So it was the really well known guy. It was his medical examiner's office. And I mean, I was like, yay, he's really good. No, it wasn't Michael Boden. That's the one that they always send the things to be reviewed. I'm sorry, I spoke wrong. I can't. I'm gonna have to go back and figure that out who it was. But what it was the guy who it's not Dr. G, but it's the other one. And it's there in San Francisco. It just should have been so good. But no. It's so terribly written. So many mistakes. Just, and okay, so now I have Brian Laundrie's joke of an autopsy that they try to put pieces of him together to look like he killed himself, but he's probably on a deserted island somewhere. And I have Shanann's, Bella and Cece's, and possibly Nico's autopsy. And I have Jessica's autopsy. And they're all just so filled with mistakes, grammatical errors, spelling errors, errors in dates, errors in what we know is true based on pictures that were taken in real time. And you have to look at this and go, do we just really have incompetent people in law enforcement and in investigations? And is it incompetency, or are they really, really understaffed and underpaid? And if so, why don't they get up and say, hey, we really need help here. We need more taxes because we can't do our jobs. Because they're not doing their jobs, they need to tell us why. For now, the basics of the story, I will be putting parts of the story and pictures that are relevant to Jessica's story on my community page. And you are always free to share the community page. And please share as much as you can about Jessica's case, because ID is a great stepping stone. But if we can get more coverage, really, we can get this turned around. We need to get the prosecutors to do their job. So, like I said, Jessica did come from a broken home. Her mom's amazing. Her mom is an amazing, beautiful warrior lady. And her family is probably one of the best families I've ever seen. They're so supportive. They bind together. They get through everything and anything. And they have been through so much. But together they fight for the right thing, and the right thing is for those children to be raised, and the children are doing so good and they're so beautiful because the family is so loving, and they really honor Jessica. So in 2015, when she wanted a whole new start, she went through that recovery program at the Friendship House, and it was, I can't remember the name of the program, sorry, but she was sober, and she really immersed herself in Native culture. With her two youngest children, she brought them to all of the MMIW events and the events that Friendship House had. They had dinners and banquets and gatherings and picnics, and just there was a lot of support. And she really had her kids in there. And so they were really learning their Native culture in a way that they should. And it's beautiful to see that they were learning so young of what an amazing and rich, beautiful culture they came from. So while she was sober, she got this cute little apartment in San Francisco. Had the kids going to school, walked them down to the bus stop every day. She went to work at the Friendship House, worked the front desk. Everybody loved her. No, she didn't meet a stranger. Jessica was the type of girl that smile lit up a room, and when she met somebody, they were her friend, and she was going to fight for them to get whatever they needed. And she helped them to get all of the resources and support that they could through the Friendship House, as she did. And she was such an amazing example of sobriety, because she really suffered and struggled with addiction. And when she went through this program, she knew that she had problems. She knew that she had not been the best mom at times. She wanted to change, and she did change. She took the help. She got help. She shined, and people wanted to learn from her and be like her. And it was admirable because people were getting sober because of her. They saw that she had struggled so hard, and if she could do it, they could do it too. And that was the kind of girl she was. And she could even sing. And she sang at some of the gatherings and stuff. And she sings really pretty. And, as MMIW has the red color, Jessica just looked so good in red. And so when she was dressed up and had all of her ribbons on and stuff, she just glowed. Now, she decorated the apartment so cute for her. She had a little girl and a little boy, her youngest. And she made her little apartment just absolutely freaking beautiful. And the kids' bedrooms were what dreams are made out of. Just colorful, imaginative, and everything they wanted and they loved. And the pictures of them just being so excited to have this little place that they called home and to be with their mother again and have her be there and engaged and sober. And they had a nice little life going. And for Christmas, they had the best Christmas ever because she spent every freaking cent on them and made that place just look like a little Christmas village. She was that mom. She was everything. And then she started writing to an old friend of hers named Clayton Rhodes. ClaytonRhoades. And she and her family had known the Rhodes family most of their lives. They were from a neighboring community in Southern California. Southern California tribe that was very small, but a tribe known to them in their culture. And so they had all been lifelong friends. And, when they would see each other, they'd be cousins, because in the native culture, when somebody's a friend and you've known them since a child, they're cousins. They call themselves cousins. So Jessica and Clayton were not actually cousins, but as children, they called each other cousins and friends. So Clayton was in prison. Clayton had been a very, very big asshole of a man. He's a big guy. He used his size to intimidate women. There is a history of domestic violence with him. He was very much into drugs. There are all kinds of allegations of what he had done to other women that he had not faced charges for. But in prison, he said he was sober. And Jessica thought that she could fix him in the way that she was fixed and get him sober too. And he could come and be the dad for the little kids. And she had this little home. And so if she could just be a part of getting him out, they'd have the perfect little family and everything would be wonderful. And she would go and visit him and take the kids and visit. And there's the pictures of them, looking like this beautiful native family. But he started controlling her from behind bars. His control was that impermeative, that he didn't need to be there. He could be behind bars, controlling another person. Behind bars, controlling Jessica and criticizing her and minimizing her just enough to knock down the beautiful Jessica just a few notches each time. Because she was so high up and she had risen so high and her light was so bright that he just wanted to dull it. But if he was obvious about dulling it, he's behind bars. She's going to walk away. She's free. He's not. So he had to do it slowly and covertly, just as any abusive, narcissistic piece of shit does. And he did. And he told her what she wanted to hear, and he just absolutely love bombed her. And, and they were passionate. I mean, there is no doubt about those two being twin flames. They were passionate lovers. They were hot. They burned hot. They burned fast. And she was going to fix him. She had gotten sober. He would be sober. She believed in him. And he came from not the best of growing up. He started having problems with his anger in adolescence. He loved the letter K. So he would write K things. So he changed his name to Clayton when he would write. So he'd write Klayton. And he wanted Jessica to be Jessika. And in the letters that he would write, he would change everything that he could that had the C sound to a K. So he would just have his own kind of little language, if you will. Now, he got out. And nobody was happier than Jessica. She got him. She got that. They'd had this wonderful little homecoming. It was the daddy for the kids. Everybody was happy. Probably lasted about a week. And that week was great. But then his control became even more impermeable. He started making Jessica stop walking her own children to the bus stop. He was going to do that. He didn't want her interacting with her sister's mother or friends. He wanted her to be his and his only. And as they were so passionate and in love and everything, she was blinded by this and just felt that love, and that aspect of control got lost in the mix. She believed in him. She believed that if she could just love him enough, that he would stay sober, and that he would be the daddy, and that he would be the husband, and that she was on track for the rest of her life. He was her everything. But his addiction was strong, and his heart was black, and he was going back down, and he was taking her with him. And as you look at the pictures of, when they were behind bars, taking the pictures of Family Day and whatnot, you could see he was sober. To a degree, it's alleged that he was getting drugs. He certainly had his own cell phone behind bars. Isn't that wonderful back then, huh? He had connections. He had a lot of connections for what he was doing in the prison. And with connections, gangs, drugs, contraband, cell phones, all that good stuff. He was a big player in that, allegedly. So it's questionable as to how sober he was, if he was ever actually really sober, or if he still just, used enough that the withdrawal wouldn't be horrible while he was behind bars. But the bottom line is that when he was out, he went back to using very fast. And she did not want that in her house, not around her kids. She said, no, no way, no way, no way. So whatever he was doing, he was hiding. She didn't know. She was going to work. She was supporting everybody. She was doing everything, but he started stealing money from her. She started really withdrawing. Her behavior was really noticed by her coworkers, her family, and her friends. And they could see her just becoming more and more a shell of herself, closing off, that beautiful smile fading. CPS was called. Child Protective Services had been involved with the reunification of the children and whatnot. And they came over and saw that, the house was clean and the TV was broken, but, you know, ultimately the CPS worker interviewed Jessica, interviewed Clayton, interviewed the children, and they had nothing they could go with. So they didn't do anything. And they left. And the people who had sent CPS there to see what was going on in the home slowly died inside because they knew something was brewing and they knew it wasn't going to be good. And they were right, sadly. I'm not going to talk about what he did to the kids right now. So, we don't know a lot about what happened, but we can infer. There's a picture that speaks volumes. And it's a picture of Jessica sitting on a park bench, looking so scared and sullen and withdrawn. And that's the last picture of Jessica alive with the children. They had went to the park. And he had forced Jess to go over to an ATM. But she didn't want to. She needed to pay the bills. And he was stealing her money so she wasn't able to be paying the bills. And she needed to pay the bills to keep the power on, to keep the kids, to keep the place, everything. But he kept stealing her money. And he wasn't working. He wasn't doing anything. He was just controlling everything and sitting around the house with his sister and his cousin. And the three of them would sit around the house and party in Jessica's home that she had worked so hard to earn and create a safe space for sobriety. And so she was fighting with him and telling him not to have his sister there and not to have the cousin there and not to sit there and break everything and ruin everything and create a very, very hostile home when she had worked so hard to make it something different with her sobriety. But he didn't care. He was cocky. He was open. He grabbed her hair. He pushed her around. He forced her to that ATM and she told the little kids to go and get help. And the little kids ran up to somebody in the park and said, "Help, help. My mom is being hurt." And so the people called the police and the police came to the park and Clayton had ran off by that time. Police left. They didn't look at any, so, how ATMs have those cameras, those kind of things and everything. They didn't give a shit. They didn't do anything about it. They're just like, "Oh, all right, he was roughing you up. Made you get out money." If it was a white woman, we would have charged him with robbery and we'd go and find him. But, you're native. No, just kidding. They didn't say that, but come on. What would have happened if she was white and two little white children ran into a stranger and the police came and the woman said, "Hey, look, he just got out of prison. He's using drugs. He's abusing us. I'm scared for my life. He just openly hit me, pulled my hair, and forced me to withdraw my money to give to him to go and buy drugs. He's recently released from prison. Please go get him." Do you think that they would have wasted any time? They would have gotten the freaking SWAT team and went and got him. But because it's San Francisco and this kind of stuff happens every day, and whether or not we like to admit it or not, they saw that she was native and they didn't give a shit. And so what was Jessica going to do? Where could she go? Well, she waited as long as she could, but she had to get the kids home and put them in bed. So she went home with the kids. And that's the last chapter of her life. All we know from then is that the next day, Clayton's sister called. One of Jessica's sisters, I believe. And I may be wrong right on this detail now I think about it. Anyway, Clayton's sister said, something happened with Jessica. Yeah. Clayton found her in the bedroom and she was unconscious. It was really weird. And so, yeah, he started CPR. Something happened to her. I don't know. Yeah, she's at the hospital. And so her sisters, called the other sisters and they all got together and they grabbed their mom and they got in the car and they started driving to San Francisco because they were down in a different part of California. And they're calling and trying to get more information. And it comes out that, well, yeah, she had, Jessica had hung herself. Huh? I thought she was just unconscious. Yeah, she hung herself. Clayton walked in on her hanging herself on the windowsill. Windowsill? Windowsill, yeah, windowsill. Well, isn't the windowsill like 2 feet tall? Well, yeah. How do you hang yourself from something 2 feet tall when you're 5'3"? Huh? Well, that was their story. They were sticking to it. Sounded good to the cops. When the cops came, apparently, Clayton said he was somebody else and said that he had walked in on her hanging herself from the windowsill, and she was unconscious, and so he cut the thing off of her neck and started CPR and called 911. And they were like, okay, all good, dude. Thanks. So when she was rushed to the hospital and everything, they thought she was a hanging victim. And they did everything, to try and figure out, why she was in this state, because she was, essentially in a coma, essentially brain dead from hanging herself. But they really didn't know exactly what happened. They were treating her for hanging because she was found unresponsive. Clayton started CPR. And that's really what they were going for. As the windowsill story really didn't make sense, Clayton changed it and said, yeah, I meant the closet. She was hanging herself from the closet with a pair of suspenders. Yep, that's a ticket. Because, when you're hanging yourself, you want to get something with a lot of stretch, like suspenders, right? I mean, generally don't try and crawl down and hang yourself something that's a third of your size, but if you're 5'3", then you go and try and hang yourself with a pair of suspenders by something that's 3 inches shorter than you. Sure. That sounds good to the cops. That's what the doctors told Cindy, the mom, the beautiful mom, when she got there. They took her back into a room and said that Jessica tried to hang herself. They went with the story, the windowsill, the closet, the suspenders. That's what the report said. Her mom and her sister said, no way. She was newly sober. She had everything going for her. No way would she try and kill herself. She would not do that for her kids. She went and got sober. If she was going to kill herself, she would have done it any one of the times that she could have, but she never did. in her addiction and in her struggles and in her deepest, darkest hour, she did not die because she wanted to live for her children, and she did. And she got sober. She got help. She knew that she made mistakes, but she was there, present, active, in fixing the relationships with her children and creating a loving, stable home to the best of her ability, and she did it. When Cindy got to the room with her sisters, and they saw their beautiful, beautiful Jessica laying there with a tube out of her mouth and her eyes were just not there anymore. Jessica wasn't there. Her eyes were puffy. They were rolled back. They were just, Jessica was not there. You could see it. And they said that when they touched her, she felt soft and just kind of swollen, like her whole body was just not her. And as they looked closer, her whole entire body was bruised. There were marks on her neck, and there was this bruising and bruises on her knees, bruises on her arms, bruises on her hands. She was beaten from head to fucking toe. And they thought the story was a hanging. These marks on her were in the shapes of fingerprints and fingers, and her knee was so badly bruised. Arms. Pictures were haunting. And I'll put them up. You'll see for yourself what I saw that night and why I couldn't turn away. There's no hanging. She was brutally, brutally beaten and attacked, strangled. Doesn't take a genius to see. So Cindy and her sisters called the doctor back up that just brought him in the room that said she hung herself and showed him. They said, look at this. She's got bruises all over. Her whole body is swollen and bruised and battered. From her knees to arms to her neck to her face. And the doctor was just shocked. And they said, we treated her with everything because we just thought it was a hanging. We treated her for an oxygen injury and an oxic brain injury. What, we don't understand what's going on. And then they did a CAT scan of her head. And they realized that she was brain dead. The family grabbed all 6 of her kids as fast as they could because the doctor said that she was brain dead, that there was no chance of her ever regaining consciousness, that she was in a vegetative state. She was in a coma. She was not going to make it. That the chances of her making it to the next day, the next few hours, was very slim. They got the kids and they got them all in there as fast as they could to say their goodbyes to their mother. And then they let her go. They let her body go, but they didn't let her spirit go. And her spirit lives on. And her spirit's a warrior. And her spirit is still working with everybody to try and get justice for herself and other missing and murdered Indigenous women. But she's fighting from the other side. She's a strong warrior spirit, just like her mother's a strong warrior. You can feel her, and when you get to know her through her pictures, you'll see what I see, and you'll feel her. And for her, I show up. For her, I speak up. And for her, I hope that she'll do the same. And for her children, we owe them the justice that their mother deserves, and all women deserve, but especially her. How do you go from the last time you were seen being beaten up in a park to then hours, literally hours later, being found basically dead at the hands of the man who was witnessed by others in a public place beating you up? And the cops don't see anything that they should be looking into there. So once they saw this and she'd passed, the mom and the sisters wanted to get in that apartment and see what the fuck happened. And so they went to the apartment and it was all locked. And they said that when they got within, like, walking distance of the apartment, the smell of bleach was overpowering them. And Clayton and his sister and cousin were in that apartment and they were not letting the family in. Well, Clayton, his sister, and the cousin were not on the lease. So the mom and the sisters were able to get the police over there and say, hey, these assholes are not on the lease. They're next of kin. Jessica is not with us anymore. And I could be wrong on that detail. It could have been the last few hours of her life. I do believe that she had passed when they went to their... So forgive me if I'm off on that detail. Either way, they were able to get the police to act. And the SWAT team was able to get that door open. And of course, Clayton was gone in the wind. Probably ran out the window. Jessica's purse was gone. All of her jewelry was gone. All of the kids' social security numbers and anything valuable was gone. Gone, gone, gone. So little vultures that they were, little Clayton and his sister and a cousin, they went and just... It wasn't enough that they had taken Jessica. They wanted to take anything else they could. And I think now that I'm thinking about it, I do believe that Jessica was still fighting for her life at that time. I remember praying and then seeing other people commenting, so I do know, because I had started that page. I had started that Facebook page, and I put it back to the little independent station that had reported it, and the little independent station was told to take the information down. And I was like, what the fuck, freedom of the press? She needs all the prayers she can get. So I kept sharing and sharing and sharing my Facebook page that I had created for Jessica. And it's funny because when I did make contact and formally meet through Facebook, Jessica's mom and sisters and everything, they're so amazing. They didn't know who the heck some weirdo in the middle of the country was spreading all of the news to everybody who would listen about their beautiful daughter. Because the San Francisco Police Department took Cindy aside and told her to take down her Facebook post because they were sick of getting calls to tell them to do their job. That there was no investigation that was going to happen. That this was a hanging. There was no crime scene. And she needed to take her post down. So she had to. She didn't have a choice. Meanwhile, I'm out here. I don't know any of that. And I'm just madder than a hornet. I'm still like going, okay, pray for this woman. Pray for this woman's justice. Get this bastard. So, it's funny to look back at it because, Jessica's mom was like, I took it down. And they're like, it's still spreading. But I mean, that they were like, who's doing this? Well, it turns out that when the medics were there and they arrived, Clayton gave him a fake name. And see, I don't understand, because anytime that, like, I've been a witness, bystander, otherwise involved with incident involving law enforcement, I have to give my ID for the report. So how did he get away with not giving his name? Because he didn't give his name, then they couldn't necessarily place him at the scene. Although there were eyewitnesses, obviously, the police and the first responders would have been able to identify him. As they did share on Investigation Discovery, I will share as well that the little girl, the daughter, heard screaming, and her and her brother knew at that point when there was fighting, they were supposed to stay in their room to be safe. And so she knew that, her mom was screaming and was having her hair pulled. Well, the police obviously don't care because they're just listening to Clayton, who couldn't give his actual name or anything, and just said that, yeah, he walked in and, she was there hanging herself with a pair of suspenders from a 5-foot closet post, and she's 5'3". Yeah, she really worked into it. He said that she was like on her knees and leaning forward, and then he cut her down. Because that's how it works, right? I mean, can you visualize this and make sense of it? Because I can't. But trained law enforcement officers can, so who am I to say anything, right? Right? So days went on. The police continued to say they weren't going to do anything. Sadly, Jessica's family knew all too well because, as investigative discovery at this point inserted into the story, that according to the CDC, Native American women have a 10 times higher murder rate. 10 times higher. Ten times higher of a murder rate. And the majority of them are unsolved. Why? Why? I don't know. Ask them, because I don't know why they won't do their job. So Cindy, the beautiful mom, she went to the apartment and was sleeping on an air mattress. She wanted answers. She could feel Jessica in that apartment. She could feel that Jessica wanted to say something. She could feel that Jessica wanted to tell the truth. Her mom to tell the truth through her. So Jessica's mom is like super smart. She's a really good artist and can sketch. And on the show, you'll see her sketches, and we can talk about that. She went through and meticulously measured and showed Jessica is this height. What you are saying she hung from could not happen. Jessica is 5'3". She is, a well-developed woman, mother of 6. She's not 5'3" and 72 pounds and gonna dangle from a string. I mean, honestly, she's saying, look, there is no way by the laws of physiology that this could have happened. And she sketched it all out with all of the measurements in that apartment, the windowsill, the closet, the everything, and said, no way. And gave it to the police. They were like, huh, nice drawings. Huh. They came back with a body cam. Jessica's mother strongly feels that whatever happened in the bathroom, because the bathroom was absolutely damaged everywhere. There was, how was it? I think there was something like behind the toilet even. I can't remember. I'll have to go back and look at my notes. There was something behind the toilet that was really weird. And the shower door broken. The towel rack was off. I mean, it was just, you can see Investigation Discovery showed the pictures of the apartment, and from the officer's body cam showed the damage to the bathroom, and it was significant. Now, Jessica's mom was hopeful because the San Francisco police called her a few weeks later and said, "Hey, can you still get into that apartment?" And she's like, "Yeah, what do you need?" And they were like, "Hey, we need to go and we're looking for something." And they were looking for a string, like a long leather red string. And it was on the body cam. And it looked like it was on the floor, I believe, in the body cam. And the reason why is because when the autopsy report came out, there were fibers of something embedded in the skin on Jessica's neck. Where is that string? If she was really hanging by children's suspenders, why would those suspenders still be there? And suspenders from something that's shorter than you would not be embedded in your neck. The way they were trying to say it is that, she leaned forward and the oxygen was cut off by her, the front of her neck. But no, something was tied so tight around her neck, like somebody holding her neck, holding her down, pulling her back. Think about it. To have embedded fibers in your skin, that would either still be there, obviously cut, otherwise, but because they couldn't find that, they were like, damn, guess we can't find the murder weapon. And I told her, almost at the same time that she got the autopsy, they called and they said, yeah, so the cause of death is hanging by self. So it's a self-inflicted injury and a suicide, and there's no further investigation that will be coming. And that's that. That's it. That's what they did. And so the show, obviously did this report, and like I say, I'm really impressed. Investigation Discovery did a really good job of covering the truth of the story and the facts. I'm really impressed because, as we know, when I talk about the Watts case, it's very infuriating because you watch the documentaries and you see the articles and whatnot that are just not true. You see things that you can compare to police documents and the discovery and actual texts and whatnot. And you see that they spun a yarn and it's not true. And so it was refreshing to see that they had done this. And this is a big start, like I say. And they called the San Francisco Sheriff Department, and I'm saying that wrong because the Sheriff's Department is called something else. Sorry, I'm missing a blank on that. Because I think they said they called the city of San Francisco and they declined to comment. But I do believe it was in the sheriff's jurisdiction. So I have to go back in my notes and see which jurisdiction that was. But either way, they said that they declined to speak on the case, that it is an open but inactive case. Like, they're so proud that it's open, but it's inactive. They're not doing anything about it. Nope. And so, there was going Clayton. He was, free to go and be as high as he wanted. He got a hold of a vehicle, and he was going around and, terrorizing everybody, and people were seeing him all over town and whatnot, and they're going, what did you do to Jessica? It's a wonder that he made it alive, through the few days that he did, because people loved Jessica and heard what he did, and even though he was affiliated allegedly with gangs, the gang members are like, what you did to that beautiful girl, you're going down for. No way. He had no one protecting him or anything. But in the same right, people would call and say, hey, the one who, just, did this to Jessica is here at this place. And the police are like, Oh, yeah. What's he doing? Hi. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, got a rifle? Oh, that's a good one. Oh, in a stolen vehicle? Oh, no driver's license? Tell him we said hi. Literally, they do nothing. I get pulled over because my turn signal isn't working, you know what I mean? But he was recently released from prison, right? So isn't that a parole violation? Isn't that worthy of revoking his parole? Why is he allowed to be free and out there to do this to another woman? So I thought. So I was like, what the double F? Why aren't they revoking his parole? Can anybody tell me this? And so I started asking it. And I started putting it on my Facebook page. Like, why aren't they getting him on the parole violations and whatnot? And, no one could answer it. Well, then we found out that it was because there was no arrest warrant for him. That until and if his parole officer got around to finding him, then maybe he'd write that he was, needing to come in for some urine tests. Because it wasn't enough that everybody was calling and saying that he was drunk and all this good stuff, right? So then, I thought it was weird that this was going on. And how can you have a felon out there doing all of this, endangering other women, and a threat and a danger to the family, to the kids that may or may not have seen this, another woman's children? He was starting to try and date other women. He was going out. He was on the prowl. Got a vehicle. So I started a petition to get his parole revoked. And I got some heat for that from a certain law enforcement department. And so I showed them that they were wrong and that he needed to be picked up. And so they ultimately did make contact with him, but there was no warrant for his arrest because it hadn't been signed. So I found out which judge was supposed to sign it and hadn't signed it yet. Contacted that judge's office and the secretary and was told that this judge is a very busy judge and that something on his desk may not get signed for a month or more. And I'm like, well, what kind of destruction can this piece of dung beetle get away with then, huh? So again, I started the petition to get the judge to sign it and find out when the judge was up for re-election and what his problem was and expose this judge for his lazy ass. And anyway, he got so mad that he signed the arrest warrant. And with that arrest warrant, then he was apprehended. And that's the thing, is that there was another court appearance that he made, and he was scaring the shit out of people before this. And it was becoming very clear that he was not going to ever be charged with Jessica's murder. But the bottom line was, why was he out free? He didn't deserve his freedom. He was not appreciative of his freedom and doing what he needed to be a responsible citizen that was becoming an active and positive role model. In fact, he had taken somebody's mother, somebody's sister, and made her a stolen sister. That what she fought for, no more stolen sisters, she had become one. And that's just fucking wrong. And so he did get pulled over. A high-speed chase ensued. He assaulted the officer. He was in a truck with no registration. He had no driver's license, of course. He had a firearm. Assaulted the officer. High-speed chase. That made the news. And he's been back in prison ever since. So, that's what it takes to get the job done. He's behind bars, but he's not behind the bars for what he should be. And we need to change that. We really do. It's not enough that he's behind bars. It's not. If he's innocent, let him have his day in court. Let him give the true story of what happened that day so that everybody can know if what we believe is true is wrong, then this man should want his day in court to tell the truth about the woman he loved, right? Wouldn't he want that if he was accused of the unthinkable for somebody he supposedly loved? Why wouldn't he be pushing for this and contacting the family and saying, look, I'm really sorry, that you don't want to hear this, but this is what happened and why it happened and how it happened. And I'm so sorry that this doesn't look right, but this is why. But he doesn't. He doesn't give a fuck. Why should he? The cops don't give a fuck. Apparently you can just go and do whatever you want, San Francisco. And that's our nation. Well, is that what we want? If this continues, what's next? Are we for full anarchy and we just accept that people get released from prison and go right back to exactly what they were doing and do it 10 times more and just take as many lives as they want because we don't want to bother the cops, the sheriffs, the parole officers? Who's not doing their job and why? And is it only when the victim is Native? Is it because the victim is Native? We have to ask why. We deserve answers. And her children deserve answers. And every single missing and murdered woman's family and children deserve answers. And we need to get together and protect. And there are men that are involved in the MMIW cause too. Absolutely. There's an incredible man named Norm Sands who made this right here in front of me that we're looking at. He makes these incredible screen art things. I love this. And yeah, I look like a pale-faced weirdo when I go around to, the powwows and I carry this stuff and I get these dirty looks and they're like, what's wrong with you to even know what that is? And yes, I do. And I am there on behalf of Jessica because she can't be there anymore. And if I get dirty looks and whatever, at least they're looking and at least they're seeing that I am here to show that I care and that I will stand in front, beside, but never behind. I will take it. I will protect. I will stand strong and I will spread the word. And I hope that all of you who listen to me will too, because we need a better tomorrow. Too many women have lost their lives. And what? They're just a disposable commodity? No, it's not fair. There's a whole culture that is facing a genocide. That's not okay. It's not okay, and that's why you need to stand up and say no more with me. And when you see these symbols, you see that? And oftentimes at like a rally, you'll see a beautiful Native woman, and she'll have her braids and a beautiful red ribbon skirt, and she'll have a handprint over her mouth. And that is to symbolize not being silenced. That somebody that she loves, her sisters, were silenced and no more. And in closing, I pray that we unite together as women and men of all colors that bleed red stand together and say no more stolen sisters. That we need to protect the sacred and we need to speak for those that no longer can. And in closing, please like and subscribe to my channel and spread the word. Please send me information on the missing that you would like me to look into and use my platform of 670 to spread the word. My email address is tabithajane0@gmail.com. TABITHAJANE 0@gmail.com. And again, go watch Jessica's story on Investigation Discovery. Look for the series Still a Mystery on ID. Look for the episode named Suspicious Circumstances, and listen to the second half of the show. Please let me know if you have any questions. Send me an email and whatnot. And in between my other content, I will share information that Jessica's family feels they would like to be shared, and always with their consent and approval, as they are so beautiful and they're such a supportive and amazing family. They're one to be proud of, and they are one worthy of fighting for. They really are. And in closing, thank you all for listening. Thank you. Bye-bye.